is it? Okay, here we go. Chancery Place. I see somebody interviewing. Nick Moore was interviewing somebody. Here we go. What's your name?
My name is Faith McFarland.
And what I seen the reporter talk to you. What was the issue about?
He was interviewing me because we're getting ready for a community debriefing.
What's that?
We had a Fredericton homeless count here February 21st to 22nd. And so yesterday we put out a press release and we wanted to get some interest for people to come out and hear about some of the preliminary findings from that count. Mm-hmm. And so Nick was nice enough to have me for an interview so we can start getting the word out.
So what did you, have you always been an activist? No, I mean...
I was raised by people who are really involved with the anti-poverty movement.
Okay.
And it's kind of interesting, like right now I feel pretty privileged because I get to work with the Fredericton Community Action Group on homelessness, and they have a 5-year plan to look at ending chronic and episodic homelessness. And for me, like when I was growing up, my mom worked in the shelter system and at the soup bank or the soup kitchen. And,
so you're educated.
You know, and it's just weird because you see a lot of the same people 30 years later. And, you know, when they say nothing changes, nothing changes. So when I get a chance to work on a plan like this with community, it's exciting. Yeah.
No, exactly.
Because it's like, let's make stuff change and let's make an impact.
You must be like me, ADHD. Okay. So anyway, so you do, why do we have homelessness? Is it because of drugs? Is it because of attitude? Is it because of alcohol? Is it because of person was one pay away from bankruptcy? What did you learn?
Well, the line between being housed and not being housed is pretty fluid, you know? Like who is homeless is, the causes of it are really varied. In terms of statistically here in the community, we're able to learn a bit more about what people identified as their cause. But you know, like in terms of causes, the one thing that we all have in common when we end up on the streets is we're part of a population that's a lot more vulnerable. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of different reasons for that, like you listed, you know, whether it's because of trauma, abuse, addictions, mental health.
Mental health. There's a big one right there.
But another huge part of it is access to affordable housing.
Affordable housing,
you know,
yes.
When you think about our own
But we got the Syrians, we could find them housing. I'm not being smart at it here, but a lot of people are complaining that, you know, Syrians arrive, which, you know, okay, let's help them. They've been traumatized. But we have a lot of people here.
Yeah, it's true. You know, but there's a saying that always resonates with me is that, like, rising tides float all boats. And it's really incredible to see federally when you make a call to rapidly rehouse 25,000 people. And that we're successfully doing it. We're not just temporarily housing people, we're actually integrating folks into our communities, trying to find solutions for affordable housing, safe housing, and we're doing it, right? And when I think federally about the crisis around affordable housing and homelessness in our own country, you know, a number that's thrown around is that on any given night, you got about 25,000 people who are going to sleep out there. And by going through this process of working with relocating the Syrian community, it's important that we can kind of learn from that. That when we put our mind to it, we can actually move the needle on an issue. And that homelessness in Fredericton and in Canada, is something that's pretty solvable.
Exactly. I'm sorry, I'm going to cut you off here and there. Just, you know, I don't want to fall asleep here. You know, I'm so rude. My ADHD. You just kicked me. Yeah. Okay, that's good. I deserve to be kicked. Listen, are you familiar with the Front Commun, the Common Front in Moncton?
I am.
You familiar with them?
I am.
Now, I'm not a fan of them, but like a couple of years ago, it's all right. I showed up there. And I asked them a question, and they don't seem interested. And the issue is the justice system. They don't want to talk about that at all. You guys, you went around homelessness. Have you looked at the justice system, how they treat people that's homeless, how they treat people with mental illness? Have you looked at that?
It's a good question. This survey, this 24-hour point-in-time survey, had a very specific methodology to measure two broad things. Like, one of them really is anonymous baseline data about who is homeless in terms of numbers, like who's in shelters, who's in streets. The second one is looking at vulnerability in terms of exposure to legal risks and violence and trauma. And so, but the count had a very specific methodology in terms of collecting information about it, because it wants to collect actionable data in terms of figuring, well, who's been on our streets a long time, who's really struggling, and who do we wrap supports around?
Yeah.
So this survey doesn't do that in terms of being able to unpack the complexity of how people engage with the criminal justice system, with the legal system. But you and I both know that like here in Canada, most often our response to homelessness has been an institutional or emergency
Fredericton is really bad. Now, if you got a homeless person,
Right.
of course, you're homeless. Like, for an example, I'm on social assistant. I'm not proud of it, but that's the way it is. A friend of mine said, Charles, I'll give you a car. Nice car. Here's a car.
But what do you do with a car?
Thank you very much. But excuse me,
How do you insure it? How do you put gas
maintenance,
in it? Maintenance,
gas, license fee, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, I keep my license. But what I'm saying
But
is,
when someone's living with money, they don't get it.
exactly. And our only form of transportation is ride a bicycle.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, we ride a bicycle, and then the police stop us because we're not wearing a helmet. Oh, there's fun and having. They give you a fine, $50.
Right.
And then you can't pay the fine, then you go to jail. I mean, shouldn't homelessness be allowed to exercise? And shouldn't the government, New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, and British Columbia, the only place around the world, and Fredericton is the only place around the world that the police go after certain culture if they dare to ride a bicycle with no helmet. Now, shouldn't we be concerned about that?
That's a really interesting take on it.
Why
in
didn't
terms
you?
of that's
Why
a
didn't you
barrier
people
to it.
talk to me on your survey? You see, you're learning something.
You know what? We
go
try
ahead.
to get the word out there to folks, like, so that more people could come out. But this is the first step. Like any other community that's changed the way that they do business around homelessness. Like most places use, like an emergency institutional response. We just manage it.
Yeah.
But let's say if we're going to start ending homelessness in Fredericton, it means we actually have to start somewhere and get to know every person by name.
Yeah.
Figure out what their level of need
Yeah.
is. We got to advocate for the supports we need to get them into housing and
Yeah.
the supports they need to maintain it.
Yeah,
But this is the
and they
first
gotta
step.
behave. They gotta behave. They can't
But
be
you
used
know
as a
what?
hangout. And give them the chance.
But like there's models we know that work for people who have.
I want to
challenges.
talk about bicycles. So
I know.
like, ouch, hit me again.
You want to talk? There you go. But
An example. An
We
example.
could talk to you.
An example.
But
An
this
example.
is the first step, and you're gonna talk
I
to
know
us
that.
more.
An example. Look, this place here.
Yeah.
Now that used to be. They used to be there. These
Yeah.
are called snobby bureaucrats. Okay.
Okay.
Now they don't answer that. So anyway, that's me. So now this was the Berlin Wall right across, and the Berlin Wall went down 2 years ago. They put the methadone clinic right there. Now, I thought the Riot Squad will be here every week because the snobs will see. Isn't this a different form of interview? Anyway, the snobs will see ripped jeans, and they will call the police. What are those people doing here? And guess what? I was wrong. They never complained once. And I hate being wrong.
Don't you?
So isn't that wonderful to have
It is.
the community health
You know
center?
what? Because the line between people who have and those who don't isn't that wide, and I think that more that we're able to mix it up. Like, when we did that whole poverty reduction strategy,
Yeah.
it didn't take long, though, before people changed the name. We started, I remember those round
Was that Sean
tables.
Graham?
Yeah, but it started even pre, and it was like poverty reduction. But it was interesting to see how the conversation changed over the course of 2.5 years to social inclusion.
Yeah.
And really, like, what's going on here is how do we work as neighbors, as community differently? And it's only when we can exclude people based on class, gender, race, socioeconomics that we have these huge complex issues.
Oh yeah,
But
they
I
say
think
it's
when
not
you build-
racism. They say it's classism, it's elitism, it's discrimination.
Right.
It's not. I call it racism. I call it the way it is.
But you know what? When you have a clinic where people can access services in the heart of your city and they're not feeling alienated
Yeah.
in any way, but encouraged to be in this place,
Yes.
it's good, right? That's what we're
Yes.
working towards. And you're right. You would expect it to have turned out different, and you're happy you're wrong.
Yeah. No. I am
good to
very,
see.
I'm very happy. Now,
It's a great clinic.
So, right quick. So you went homeless for 24 hours
It
as a
wasn't
test
quite like
test
that.
run.
No, this was a survey essentially over the course of 24 hours to be able to get a sense of who's living on the streets.
When did you do that?
February 21st.
February 21st. Okay,
February
you got my attention. Was it
Got
cold?
it. Yeah, it was about I was trying to figure that out in terms of the temperature that day, but without wind chill, it was about -12 that morning. It was these counts are designed to take place
Were you alone?
over a snapshot. No, we had 40 volunteers.
40 people stay awake all night walking around?
No, what we did is we targeted a lot of different places where we'd be able to connect with people who are homeless.
Where's that?
So let's say, of course, logically, our emergency shelters.
Yeah.
Because you have a certain aspect of the population.
They
who are
shut
able to
down
get
10
into
o'clock. 11 maybe.
Our volunteers, they went in like at about 8 o'clock at night.
Did you go around the city to find out where the homeless
so
are
that
sleeping?
was a street count. So the street count didn't happen through the entire night. Most cities who do this 24-hour point-in-time count will choose a time between 5 and 7 a.m. So you're least likely to disturb someone when they're sleeping.
You
because you're
sound
not
such a
supposed to-
you sound I'm sorry. You sound such a nice lady. Please tell me, how can somebody
Yeah.
call the police on a cold night
Right.
and say there's somebody sleeping in the teller machine? How can don't these people have what's that word again? Oh yeah, conscious.
I think sometimes people want to help and they don't know how.
Yeah, they
And
call
I
the police
wonder-
and then they tell go outside.
And in a system, when we use like emergency services and institutional services to respond to something that's not criminal, that's kind of what happens, is that we kind of need a response that really is human and one that does work. And so I think when people want to help, sometimes they just get it wrong, because they don't know what else to do. And they
Oh,
see
so
it, and
they
shame.
mean well when they
I
call the
don't know.
police
I
or
can't say what's
say
in
get
their
that
mind."
goddamn bum out of here.
You know what? I'd hope not, but maybe
But this
that's
is Fredericton,
right?
the snobby city. No, don't answer that. So the police, if you talk to them,
Yeah, actually, they helped a lot because.
they help. They're idiots. Ouch. Okay, you hit me again. I mean,
But no, we needed information about where people are rough sleeping.
what did they tell you? Under the causeway, under the bridge?
Yeah, they were pretty good in terms of being able to work with us because they wanted to make sure that we connected with a maximum amount of people.
Were they right?
Yeah,
They were right?
And they also helped with our training because we had 40 volunteers plus who came through to get trained in terms of how do you administer these surveys.
Can I
And
know
we
which
have
cop that
some of
helped
the-
you? Duncan? Duncan was there.
Oh,
He's good. Duncan's good.
There's a lot of great ones I've had connection with
Ouch!
in this project. But they were a big help because they actually help with some of the sensitivity training, all of that.
What did you learn?
During this count,
What did you learn? 30 seconds or less. What did you learn?
what I learned is there's a lot more people than I imagined who are chronically homeless in Fredericton. That means there's a lot more people who've been on our streets for 6 months or more. That's pretty devastating. Normally, you would say about 15% of your homeless population is chronic. Those are people who get trapped in the cycle, and or who have like multiple episodes in a year. And that's not what we saw when we did our snapshot in that 24 hours. It was really disproportionate, a lot larger than I thought. And we'll share that information on Tuesday. But I think it's something. That's what I learned. Is the extent. It's not about the numbers. It's the type of homelessness sometimes that's really important for people to get. And the longer somebody's been on the streets, the harder it is to get out. And what we saw is there's a lot of people who've been on the streets for a long time.
See, I got my glove. You got the flu. You say if I catch the flu, you're gonna get blood.
It's
Thank
nice to
you.
talk to you, Charles.